But the big thing that's missing there, and the most important thing that's missing there, is pulling. Now, I think at present we have a tendency to equate suffering with pulling. Now, there are two kinds of suffering. There's a suffering when you are feeling down on yourself, and you're suffering in a negative way. You're suffering listening to negativity or dealing with negativity. There's another kind of suffering that maybe isn't even appropriate to call it suffering, but it's a type of suffering. We'll call it pulpering. Okay? I haven't told you about that word, pulpering, but it's when you're expressing in your thoughts a desperation for the next step. And desperation doesn't carry with it an alternative of or else, or a desperation of if we don't get the next step soon, I'm gonna blank. It means that you're pulling because you have recognized that you're at a place where there's lots of room for a next step. In other words, there's the two kinds of suffering, and one is a negative suffering. One is a positive suffering, which is really pulling. And it's saying in your thoughts and in you're vibrating it. It's not just in thoughts or just something you're saying. It's something that you're vibrating. I want what's next. I want to know what's next. What can I do to change? What's next for me? We're not just saying what's next and let's come in with some real super idea. We're saying what is next. Now that might mean individually. It might mean for the class. But it's time for you to assume more responsibility for pulling. You know, and this gets over into another topic that we're going to discuss with you. Pretty much up until now, Lynx has done most of your pulling for you, and it's like the mama bird and goes out and gets the food and brings it to the baby. Except at times you weren't even hungry when we brought you new food or new information. We even had to stimulate your hunger so that you could receive the result of our pulling. Now, let's understand that a little bit better. When Lynx is saying to themselves, jointly and separately, we want what's next. We want the next step. And we're pulling very desperately for it. We keep that pulling going. We don't let it stop. We keep it going until we get the next step. Now, when we get the next step, then we come with glee and give it to you. And I'm just repeating myself, and at times we had to even get you in shape for taking full advantage of it because of the things distracting or you just the thirst wasn't really there. The hunger wasn't there. Or if it was there, the degree of it was too slight. Now, a lot of times when we would come as a result of our pulling and come and feed you with new information, some of you who were very thirsty would even expand on missing parts of the nutrition that we had brought you. You remember how we talked about in the previous meeting that sometimes we our minds, without letting our vehicles know, will leave missing parts to new information, and it's your task to bring those in. Well, we feel like it's time to switch gears in a more significant way. where your pulling needs to be more constant. And in other words, you would ask, let me back up a second. When T and O are pulling, we always have a question, or we're always looking for the question. When we say, what's next, or what's the next step, we're also at the same time looking for what is the question, if you can understand that. And then if we pull, and we're permitted, because of where you are, we're permitted some information, the first thing that comes in is the question of why is this so-and-so, or what is that, or so-and-so and so-and-so, and then it's followed with the answer. Okay? Now, does everybody understand that? As a result of our pulling, we get a question, and then the answer comes. Now, I said a moment ago, when we would come and give you the answer, then sometimes you would have little side questions that would fill in blanks. Now, we would like to hope that we're at a place where you will assume more responsibility for accelerated motion by your questions bringing our answers. In other words, if we can bring our minds and your minds more into the consciousness of the vehicles, you will take more responsibility for the questions. Now, you say, well, what kind of questions? This is very important. It's not philosophical questions. It's not questions about what happened to the minds of the vehicles of those related to Elijah and so forth. It's got to be the same questions that would have come into our mind. But we want you to pull those questions in. Doesn't mean we're not going to pull them in, because we're not going to wait for you. We're going to pull them in, but we'd like you to beat us to the game a little bit, if you can. We would like for you to take more of the load of pulling the questions in. Now, you don't pull the questions in by saying, what is the question I'm looking for? You see what I'm saying? You pull the question in by saying, what is the next step? What is next for me? How can I improve at this point? Or what is next? What is the forward motion? And if you suffer enough, in other words, if the craving is strong enough, if the hunger is strong enough, now, and the hunger can't be strong if you're comfortable. Now, you may think that you're not comfortable. It's very easy for us to get comfortable if you don't force next level mind in strong. It's a lot easier to get comfortable under the circumstances that you're existing now than it was in some of the previous circumstances. Therefore, it demands a lot more pulling of your next level mind in to see that you don't get comfortable. Now, let's say particularly for like someone who has an out-of-craft task that demands a lot of them mentally, and they come back here, and the things that are going on here demand a lot of them mentally, and they do everything according to procedure, and they go down on time, and they get up, and their countenance is great, and their pulling has been zilch. They're comfortable. Do you follow what we're saying? You don't follow that? Hanson?
It's hard for me to understand if they're doing all those things.
If they're doing all those things, they're still comfortable. They've left out the most important ingredient, and that's pulling for the next step. That's carrying with you the consciousness of what's next. If you don't carry that as the top priority in your consciousness, our task will be harder and harder to reach the point of completion. Now, while I've got the thought on my mind, just to interrupt, but Talodi, one time when you will not ring the bell is when we're in meeting. Okay.
Let me say something. Do you all understand what Don means when he says pulling? It isn't trying to make contact with the next level. Okay, wanted to make that clear. Also, another way to...
Well, since you said that, what are you making contact with? Sonny?
I'm making one that it's the mind that's in my vehicle that's talking to the mind that's outside of the vehicle, trying to say, come in and bring more on.
No, it's your next level mind. It's the amount of next level mind that's in the vehicle that is saying to the amount of the next level mind that is still not in the vehicle, I've got to bring more of you in. And it's I mean it time. You see what we're saying? The intensity that you have is I am not satisfied with the degree of control I have, with the knowledge I have. I'm still, I feel so limited because I'm so ignorant in this vehicle. So can't I have more, at least bring in more wisdom to know how to handle this vehicle better and to know how to complete this task in a more fulfilled way? And so you're really talking to your next level mind saying, I am tired of the degree that you're in. It's got to increase. It's got to increase. Now, you were going to say one other thing, and I interrupted you. You said, oh, I didn't mean to. I thought I'd interrupted you. Does everybody understand that? Now, Sonia, I'm confused by your not understanding the difference between if you do everything right and then are saying that that's still comfortable. When you're going about your chores and you're doing everything according to procedure and your countenance is right and you're doing things on time and your vitality is there and all those things, there still has to be a more important thing than any of that is screaming, what's next? What is, how can I have a better understanding? How can I have more control? How can I see this task more for what it is instead of through the limited eyes that I have at this moment? And we're not talking philosophically. We're talking about getting more mind into your consciousness. We want to complete this task. Which brings up something else that T and O were offended by. You might as well get it out and get it out just blatantly. And can you anybody know what it was? Anybody?
No, this maybe. I'll let go, but more. 12 ships of landing? No.
What?
No.
12 ships of landing? No.
No.
Cerrone?
10 years of learning.
That's right. Not one of you have had 10 years of learning. And the vehicle was trying to make it look bad to you and to your teachers. Not one of you have been with your teachers 10 years. Is that not so?
No sense confusing the next level. They know how long you've been with them.
Yeah. To us, if we said how long have you been in the class, your answer should be 9 years, until the day that it is 10. You are not, a child is not 10 years old until his 10th birthday. He's not going on 10. That doesn't make any sense. That kind of reasoning is going on. What does that mean? Doesn't mean anything. He's 10 when he's 10. When 10 years have passed, then he is 10, the day that 10th year has been completed. And but anything that is a reminder of it's longer, it's been so long, and it's really a little longer, I'll make it look as if it's a little longer than it really is.
Actually, it's as long as ours.
But that kind of thinking slipped in. That kind of thinking slipped in. And we were very surprised that some of you didn't catch it from your lyrics and say, I don't feel good about this.
Well, the night that we asked you, we were talking about it, and we asked how long you'd been with us, and several said 10 years. And I
That's right.
said, none of you.
I'm afraid I wanted to walk right out the door because I was hearing vehicles talking negatively.
And it's a circumstance that can cause you trouble. Now, this is the kind of thing that you don't want to allow your vehicle to do to you.
That's negative suffering.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
Hmm?
Negative suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Do y'all understand that? Now, then, Sody, I can understand why you're confused about what Dove said, because we said as long as you follow follow procedure and try to do everything the way members of the next level would do it, you would bring in mind. It's true. That's exactly right. But you also need to have some kind of desire to accelerate it a little bit. And if you're too comfortable, I must admit, there's not much desire, much curiosity, I'll put it that way.
Well, we're slowed down too. If you're comfortable, if you're not pulling hard, we're just twiddling our thumbs. We're just desperately, and we go out and get food that you haven't even, I'm talking nutritional, knowledge food. We go out and get food that you're not even aware that you're hungry for. And you love to get it, just like you love to get candies. And you aren't hungry for them, right? Do you see what we're saying? Now, back to Dan Sody. We don't want any of you regretting anything that you've done to this moment. We're trying to say from this moment on, will you take more of the responsibility of pulling? In other words, the teachers are saying, we want you to pull more of the questions. And we want to, because nothing makes us happier than answers. Nothing makes us happier than questions. We hope you can ask us questions that we can say, boy, that's neat. We'll have to go think about that. And when we say that, then we'll go think about it. And we'll get the answer to it. But we don't want the kind of questions that aren't forward motion for us. So it's going to take some careful judgment on your part to, because, like, again, you're not looking for questions. You're looking for what's next. How can I get more mind in? How can I have more overview? How can I get closer to completing this task? A day doesn't go by that completing this task isn't said through our heads 1,000 times. And it is, and don't misunderstand that as unhappy with the task or not appreciative of the task. It's because we love the task and we love the next level that we want to complete the task instead of wander around. Can you understand that? Because to us, to delay a moment beyond necessity is to wander around, is to twiddle our thumbs.
When you listen to the tape, don't just listen to the words. In other words, try to understand what is being said and try to remember it. Because until you understand it, until you remember it, then in my mind it's difficult to bring in very much new stuff. It's like learning a lesson. Do you agree?
Yes.
In other words, you want to put the effort into whenever you listen to the tape. Just don't have the tape going.
Right. It's got to be assimilation of understanding.
In other words, you want to have all of your facilities awake while you're listening. Now, I felt like the power of goodness that you all were given to read, not all of you understood what it meant. And I don't believe all of you...
In depth.
In depth. And I don't believe all of you put it into action. Because if you had put it into action, we wouldn't have had some of the things happening that has happened since it was put into action. So that means the power of goodness in some of your minds, you have not understood what it was. We've deseeded already, so that means some of you have missed out on that lesson. But you don't want to miss out on any others. Because with each lesson or each tape that has been given to you comes with it a lot more than is actually said. But you have the facilities in your next level mind to bring in that knowledge, because all we're doing is giving you keywords to bring in your mind. And we sit and talk for an hour or so, and we're giving you just gobs of keywords. And with those keywords, it should open something in your mind to bring in more mind, so that, in other words, you've got to ask, like Doe said, what's next? What is next? And if a question comes up in your mind, say, what about that? I want to find the answer to that. And then keep on until your mind is full of questions and answers are coming in so fast that your head is swimming.
You know, the little phrase in the thing that you're doing now at 6 and 8 that says, I want to complete this task as quickly as possible. You don't mean it. I'm sorry. You don't mean it. You don't mean it the way you've got to grow to mean it. You know what I'm saying? You might mean it, but it isn't deep enough. It's like you're in the wading pool, and let's get in the swimming pool as far as the depth of how much you mean it. Because if you meant it the way we would like for you to mean it, we'd be exhausted flooding you with new things that are new steps. You see what I'm saying? Because if you really meant, like T said, the whole meaning of I want to complete the task as quickly as possible, not just those words, but all that implies, we could really put the throttle on. And
Well, they can grow to understand it.
Yes.
Through the process of seeing it. But the meaning, everything that is said to you, even what I'm saying to you right now, has more meaning to it than what your ears are hearing at this time. And this is what we want you to become more thirsty and not be satisfied by thinking, I'll listen to the tape so many hours a day or minutes a day, whatever it is, and I'll do my twice a day little sitting down whenever the tone rings, and I'll follow procedure as best as I can. And if you think that way, then you are comfortable, like Doe said. What you want to know, we want you to develop a thirst to want to know more than what you know. In other words, you want to have a greater understanding of what is said. I get so frustrated with this vehicle because I cannot bring in enough knowledge. But I know it's like a little note on the piano roll, but it's still frustrating, and I feel it just about constantly.
But it's not the frustration that is important. The thing that's important is the desperation of continually trying to bring in more mind, because it's there always with T. It's always there, no matter what she's doing. And I mean, it's desperate, always. You know, when the little thing you say at 6 and 8 comes around, when that time comes around, it shouldn't be any change. In other words, when it comes around, if anything, it should be lighter. than the strength that you've had about it between those times. You know what I mean by lighter? Because you're having to think about doing it in unison, and you want, even though you're trying to get the thought, but to verbalize it in the way that you're doing it at those two times requires a little of a distraction from the pulling itself. You follow what we're saying? But we still want to leave it, because if you have slipped away for a period prior to it or a period after it, then at least it will help you see, goodness, look where I am. I'm not even thinking like a member of the kingdom of heaven, or acting like one. Okay, we're here to beg you, and we wish that you wanted a big minnow. Okay? Have an appetite for a giant minnow.
How about a shark?
Okay, a shark. I love you.
I know in my vehicle, listening to you, it feels anxiety and or disappointment about the things it's recognizing that it hasn't where it could have done better than it did. But when you talk about pulling, I'm reminded of an earlier tip when you're talking about us being desperate or being anxious or eager for more information, and I wanted to check to be sure it was right to, there's in my mind speaking saying, well, this should be an optimistic thing. This can be looking forward to things with enthusiasm, or it's safer to be more, have an attitude of serious self-examination all the time, that not necessarily happy, but just determined.
Well, it's somewhere in between. It's got to stay positive, but it can't be pleasant. I mean, it can't be comfortable. It's got to stay positive in that you're, in a sense, you're anticipating the next step. But you can't anticipate it with, oh, it'll really be great when the next step gets here. It's knowing that that next step isn't going to get here if I don't keep my mind on pulling that rope. And the rope is hard to pull. And I have to really pull the rope. I have to tug with force. And it's not that the tugging upsets me or makes me go on a downer, but it can exhaust me. And there's not a better type of exhaustion. It's a very healthy exhaustion when you're pulling for more mind to come in.
It's, in a sense, this is a maturing thing. It isn't, it shouldn't ever be taken as a put-down in any way. This is more of a maturing thing, because it's like the mother bird telling the baby, well, you can come out of the nest now, and you can walk around a little bit, and fly a little bit, and
Find your own seed.
Find your own seed. But we're not saying you find your own information. We're just saying that it is a maturing thing. And you have the ability, you have enough mind in that you can absorb more of the knowledge than what you have absorbed in the past. Do you understand that? Meaning the keywords that we give you, you have enough mind in that you can find a lot of answers or have questions from the keywords. Can you follow that? It's the ability that you have gained at this time. In other words, the ability to do it has happened for you. But you have to put it to use in order to make it work. Can you understand that, What do you like? Okay.
Let me say one more thing, actually. And then, you know, you had a question we didn't answer. Did you remember it? Okay. When T and I were awakening, and we were desperate for information and desperate for forward motion. A lot of the times the questions that would come to me were, because anytime a question comes, you can't help but get an answer to the question, or some facsimile of an answer to the question. And as a question would come and an answer would come, in sharing it with T, I would recognize that the answer that was coming to the question was usually very healthy, but the answer coming to the question usually was off base. The question that would come into my mind was usually a good question, but many times the answer that followed it was not appropriate. And then as we grew together, the more it shored up to where the same answers would come. Now, to where more in the task, certain types, well, not always, but sometimes certain types of questions and answers seem T's task more to bring in, where sometimes other types. But we don't trust each other. We only trust here again, the relationship of check partners and the methods that we have been given to check against them. Funny thing is, a long time ago, if a question came and an answer came, and T recognized it was the wrong answer, and maybe even the question needed to be screwed on a little differently. Very early in the game, it was almost like, I thought that was a good question, and I thought the answer was really super, But now, when I ask a question and think I might have the answer, my eagerness is to hear the editing. Do you follow that? My eagerness is to hear it brought on course. And I recognize when it's brought on course. I don't have to accept it reluctantly, thinking mine was the one on course. Do you follow that? I recognize when mine that was out of shape is put in place. Now, in a sense, that's what we want happening in your head. We want your pulling to be so stimulated by your desire to pull that your head will be full of questions that will be super, and you'll ask them even though you'll probably be fighting off the answer. And when the answer jives with the answer that we come up with, you'll think, oh boy, I was on the right track for that one. Do you see what we're saying? And I don't care if it isn't. Don't mind if it isn't. Because here again, let us remind you, you're not looking for questions. But it's the frame of mind in your pulling. Because if you're in the frame of mind and you're really pulling, then when we're with you, enough next level mind is going to come through that head that it's going to say to its teachers, well, what about so-and-so? And it's going to be appropriate at that time to consider what about so-and-so. Do you follow that? Does everybody follow that?
One time when we were in Blackhawk and we told you all about who you were, Pam Odie ventured out with her. I mean, in her eagerness, she said, well, does that mean that we're members of the next level?
What was it?
Or something like that. Do you remember?
Does that mean that we all actually came from the next level? And it had that picture in those words hadn't occurred to us. And yet it was exactly what it meant. Do you see what we're saying? And at that moment, Pam Odie was really exercising. She was right on track. And she was really exercising that pull.
And we would like to hear from you all now, all the minutes, hours of tapes that you've listened to us. Does this mean such and such? And we can see that you all have absorbed those tapes. When we sit and ask you for questions,
in depth, right?
We don't mean questions about procedures, or should we put this into fact or that into fact. We're talking about things that you've heard on the tape. And we want you to think about not what you can pick to pieces the tank. We're not talking about finding fault with it. We're talking about you're bringing in more information.
Opening some of the facets
Right.
that are still not open.
You know, when we first began to awaken, when Doe was talking, by the way, it worked both ways. He got a lot of things that Doe had to clarify also, and I know what he meant, because I would think it's this way, and Doe would say, you know, we would work it out in the right way. Do you know what I mean? In other words, the feeling was, but this seems so right. But then after sharing it with him, and he shared his feelings, I realized that it was more right, and which was right. Do you know what I mean? And but when we were first awakening, when he was talking about this, I had a picture of me, of this vehicle, when it was up at Gold Beach, long before we knew you all would be with us. And I was standing, looking out over the Rogue River, and I was thinking, I can't see that river, even though it was in front of me. I've got to push, I've got to get my eyes open more so I can see that river. And I stood there and I pushed like crazy, like I was getting out of a chrysalis. I mean, this was physically happening. And it was as though the river was flowing in front of me, but I really couldn't see that river, the full meaning of that river. And it's like these tapes. These tapes come to you. You can listen to them flow, and they can fill the whole craft with words. But unless you push really hard, you don't know what they mean. Totally what they mean.
It didn't mean she couldn't see the water. She could see the water.
But I knew there was a meaning.
There were
higher meaning, a
lots
higher way
of
to
ramifications, a lot of facets, a lot of things that just by seeing the water you don't understand.
Everything, I realized everything that I was looking at was not real.
Right, it was superficial.
It was not real, and I wanted to see the real meaning of it. Now, these are the things that keep going on in my mind now. Even what I'm talking to you, what I'm saying to you right now, is not real. As real as it can
Right,
be.
it's just the waters.
And this is what keeps me going, because I want to know the real meaning, and it will come, because I'm going to keep on until it's going to be completely exposed, and my understanding will be 100%. And this is what you want, right?
Now, Cody, what's your question?
Well, first thing I wanted to ask was, I guess what happens to me is that I seem to think of these questions that I have at the most inopportune times. They are for me to write them down, chopping onions, something, I don't. I guess maybe I'm just not exerting enough effort to hold on to that question until I get off duty and write it down.
You could hold on to it.
Just need to.
Try to, right?
Yes. You can hold to it. Don't let yourself stop thinking of it until the first chance you have to yank that pen and paper out and put down a word. We'll be driving, and sometimes we'll think. The funny thing is, we'll say, the one that's driving will say to the other one, "Oh, write that word down so we won't forget that word," and we never refer to it. But we have it written down if we ever needed to refer to it. Do you know what we're saying? And it'll be keywords to something we want to share with you. And we'll say to the other one, would you write that down? Would you pull the tablet out and write that word down? And we'll pull the tablet out and write that. The tablet never gets pulled out again until the next time we write down another word.
But in a sense, it's stamping our computers.
That's right.
Is what it's doing.
Mhm.
When we're counting up mileage, like, on a map or something, they'll say, remember 104. And so I'll go over 104, 104. And my mind says, I won't forget. And then when he asks for it, I'll say, what? No, I'll really know. I'll remember 104. So in a sense, the question, you can do the same thing because you don't want to forget it. And you want to, until you learn. The only reason I say it because it's like, it's not next level stuff, it's just something we have to
They're
get
hard
right.
to print.
But to start out, if you're having trouble remembering, it wouldn't hurt to do that. It does work for me, so maybe it will for you.
I don't know if this is an appropriate question, it's just maybe my vehicle wanting to go into it. But the other night when you brought up the thing about you were figuring out how old Rory's vehicle was and trying to figure out the amount of time his vehicle may have been and such and how long his mind may have come in. For a long time, when you first brought in this information about the recent stuff that you brought in, this question surfaced where I was wondering, and this is why I may be completely off base, because I can remember back when this vehicle was about that midpoint, circumstances like I can remember how the life of the vehicle was just, it's just like everyone else that goes to school and starts high school and everything's just normal, but then all of a sudden drastic things started happening that you might call somebody who's just does some bad things, gets in trouble with police and drugs and things like that. And I can remember experiences where this vehicle would be with people and they'd be involved in drugs and things. And then all of a sudden they would be talking about things and there was like a distance and it was like, what is this conversation isn't making sense? This kind of stuff that I don't even understand. What am I doing here? And then after the experience, and after a period of time, I remember trying to get away from that stuff. And I remember how things progressed to a point where I kept saying, I don't like this. This just doesn't seem right to where I heard about this, and here we are. But, so I don't know if it was right to see it that way.
What do you mean when you said midway?
How far?
I can remember...
Like your mind coming in, is that what you're
Yes, he's wondering if
about
it was...
14 years old, when the vehicle was about 14, some pretty drastic things started happening.
What year was that?
Well, 14 from 85, let's see, 70 or 71.
See, this was when we were beginning to awaken.
And I just was wondering if it was so clear, and I just wondered if that was right or not.
See, things were falling apart in our
there's so much conflict going on up here, and everything that the mind of the vehicle had joined hands in cooperation with the vehicle on the path it was going to take, and then all of a sudden when this next level mind starts to come in and says, well, that's not the path we're going to take at all, unconsciously, not consciously, but says that's not the path we're going to take at all, then you not only feel like you're loony, but you feel like no one could be as unstable as I am. Because if I do that, I will have lost my stability. The thing that the vehicle and the mind of the vehicle might have really grooved on was being able to carry out the program that was already there. You all follow that? And it's interesting to us to... hello, Dad Doty. It's interesting to us to get some idea of when this was happening, as your next level minds were beginning to insist upon an entrance into those vehicles and begin to make its way in. And we see like if it was in the early 70s or right around 70, 71, if it was there, it might have been even 69 for some of you, some 69.
Well, you know what, excuse me.
Because, and we, that, the kind of thing that was happening to you then, in order to have our vehicles prepared for that period, that was happening to us almost 10 years prior to that. The kind of thing that was happening to you then was happening to us almost 10 years prior to that. Because at the time that was happening to you, we were having to be one whole strata in further conflict with vehicles, you see, and patterns. Even though it wasn't a mind against a mind in our case, as it was in your case. Excuse me.
Well, I also think that the mind, I feel like these vehicles have been picked out for a long time by you. And if your mind felt like your vehicle was getting into something it didn't want to get into too deep, or if it would interfere with the task, then it might come a little bit closer or something to protect it. That's the way I
Say that once more.
well, like, if like I feel like all of their vehicles have been picked for a long time. And let's say, using Alex Sodi as an example, he said he was getting involved with drugs and police or something like that. And let's say that his mind, his next level mind, saw that the vehicle could take a turn where it would interfere with its task, put him in a position where he might not be able to do the task. So he just stepped in and helped him a little bit. That's the way I think. And so he wouldn't get involved in it. And I believe whether you did it or whether a member of the next level did it, but once the vehicles were picked, I think everything was done to protect them. And even though they suffered like crazy, I'm not talking about that kind of protection.
Picture yourself in the next level.
I wish y'all could see
before
that.
picking vehicles, okay?
Get it in your mind.
Picture yourself in the next level before picking your vehicle. And the next level says, if we're going to do this task in the most thorough way we can do it, then we've got, we want some samples from this category, this category, this category, this category, this category, this category, this category. Do you think you can handle that one? Do you think you can handle that one? Do you think you can handle? Oh yes, I can. And now you're saying, wonderful. And but from the next level, you could clearly see what it was that you were being asked to handle, and are being asked if this is the tool that you wanted for your laboratory experiment. And you said, sure, that's the tool I want, because you all were asked to take tools, and you were all honored at being asked to take tools to accomplish a task. And none of the tools were perfect for the task, because the garden hadn't grown to the point where any of those tools could have been perfect for the task. They're all clumsy, primitive tools. Don't forget, but they fall in as close a category as possible to cover a certain spectrum of development. And we feel like at that point, each of you, it was like laid out for you. You saw what the options were, what the choices were, and you made your choice. And then the task began once you began to take occupancy, or try to convince the vehicle of occupancy. Not try to convince, because you had the power to take occupancy, because you were next level minds. You had the power to take occupancy. Now, and we believe that. We firmly believe that you had the strength to take occupancy. No matter, the funny thing is, we never, when you take into consideration everything that you have to deal with the vehicle, the mind of the vehicle, and the vehicle's genetic characteristics, we never judge that package. We judge what you do with that package, not judge. We're concerned with what you do with that package. Do you follow what we're saying? Because the result of your occupancy of a vehicle compared to another next level man's occupancy with that vehicle might be viewed totally differently. Do you follow what we're saying? But we know that you don't have the eyes to view what is an adequate control and use of that tool. Do you follow that? Like you all, like we've said, all your vehicles, all your tools are extremely handicapped in one way or the other, just because of the level of development. They're physically, mentally, every way, they're extremely handicapped, as our vehicles are. And so, but some are more obvious. They're only obvious from the point that humans make their evaluations now. If humans were several hundred years hence from now, they would make those evaluations entirely differently. But your vehicle still tries to make evaluations according to the current popular evaluation of control of vehicles, which isn't accurate at all. But I don't want to talk on that. I want to hear more questions. Steve?
Somebody had their hand up.
Emily?
Did you know the other?
You got it?
Well, I don't know if this is important, but I was trying to figure out when we had a choice of vehicles, was it a vehicle mind package that we chose? I mean, were we part of choosing if this mind was going to have its acceleration, or did we...
Handle.
Say that again.
Well, I understand that we would choose a vehicle because it has certain, we had selection possibly of vehicles to choose from.
Well, now, when we say vehicle, we're talking about vehicle and its mind.
And it's mine.
Yeah.
So, but if we didn't select a certain vehicle, then that mind didn't have the chance that this one did. So in a sense, I don't know.
Wait a minute. Say that again.
Well, by us choosing one of those vehicles, we gave that mind an opportunity
Oh,
of
absolutely.
choice. So we were kind of responsible in that way for helping this.
Wait a minute. You gave that mind a choice?
We gave that mind an opportunity. Like if we had a choice of
Opportunity, but no choice.
You didn't really give it a choice.
You know, this is, I keep thinking about the scripture about when the owner sends his son to take over the property, and then they kill him, and then they send him somebody else to come and take property. In a sense, the next level is sending their son, so to speak, to take over their property. And so I wanted to clarify that for the sake of the tape, if anyone should hear it, that the property belongs to the next level. It doesn't belong to an individual. They only think it belongs to them. But so in a sense, the choice, they should have been honored to have the next level choose their vehicle to do this task. Okay, now that's just to clarify the tape. Go ahead with your question.
Well, I was just wondering about the ones that we didn't choose. Like we maybe had a choice of 1 through 5 vehicles, and we chose, one, and then so we.
I doubt it.
Okay.
We doubt that it was presented to you that way.
Okay.
It was probably, these were laid up here by people whose task gave them the knowledge to not make uninformed questions to you. In other words, I can't imagine an older member saying to you, Junodi, does this vehicle seem adequate to you? I can't imagine them saying it to you and say, no, give me 3 more choices.
I tell you, you know what I think they gave to you? I think they gave you what the task is. And you looked at that task and you said, I think I can handle that. You know what I mean by the task?
Yeah, the task that only that vehicle could accomplish.
And you said, oh, I feel like I could do that. Oh, I'm not.
Then probably the search went for a close item that could accomplish that task.
Well, I think they already had it, David.
Well, they probably did, but the point I'm making is how you said that the task came first. You know,
And
the
then
task
they
came
did a
first and then matching the
tissue
tool.
comparison.
But you all
Make sure
follow
you
what
were
T is saying, because I
compatible.
think it's very important that it was what was to be accomplished by the task, and then a tool. But like T said, they probably had both already lined up, and it was a matter of saying, here is your suit of clothes, and knowing that this suit of clothes would accomplish this task, and this is a task that you wanted. Will you wear it? And that's just in the next level. There's no question about it. It's not being imposed upon you. It wouldn't be offered to you if you were not honored to work in that way, to be a part of the task. Do you follow what we're saying? Neither would the task be given to you if they did not feel that you were capable of doing the task. This is why we said a moment ago that you were all had strong enough minds to get control of the tools, but it took strategy. And so in a sense, now you say, well, where does that put some who didn't get control of those vehicles? It puts them at a task not accomplished.
Pretty weak.
And it puts them at showing that they will need, again, comparable experience and development in that area to grow further in the next level.
What I think, and I could be wrong, but I think that the next level has whatever it is anyway, they have your growth in mind first. Okay? In other words, your weak area are in there. They are concerned about that more than they are about this garden. Can you follow that? And so therefore, if you are placed into a vehicle who has something that you are weak in and you are not able to get control of it, then you just lose out.
Yeah, I want you all to understand that, because what T is reminding you is extremely important, because your development is more important to them than this garden. And you can say, well, I don't understand that at all. What kind of humanity is that? That's not humanity. That's next level. In other words, is it not more important that the tree develop than each fruit be spared? Do you see what we're saying? In other words, you're already in that kingdom level. Your development is the most important thing. When you're talking about tasks that you would do with plants that are in a midstream almost in process of reaching that place, they have still so many mazes to go through that if they make right options, nothing could disrupt that, if you understand. But you've got to even understand that even if the next level wiped the slate clean, they would not do it if there was anything to be lost. Do you follow what we're saying? And they've proven that many times in the past history of the way that they have worked. I don't know if I can start that.
If I understood it right, then is it right to think that you have the task that's offered to you, but was it the need for the growth that drove the task?
Say that again.
Okay, the need for the growth.
Your need?
My need determines the task being offered to me. My own weakness determines my opportunity.
Well, it's worded wrong.
Okay.
It's your opportunity to correct a weakness.
That's it.
In other words, they certainly wouldn't give you a vehicle where you couldn't gain anything from it, right?
Right.
It would be foolish. You wouldn't no need to come because you would already have conquered it.
But she's
And
saying, was
there's
the task created for an opportunity
Yes.
for that development, or did the task need to be done? And
Well,
that
let me
opportunity.
say something else. Let me say something else, okay? There are a lot of members in the next level at this time with weaknesses the same that you all have. And they are waiting for opportunities to gain strength. And this is an accelerated opportunity. Do you follow what I'm saying? In other words, just because you go to the next level, there's some, I'm not talking about weakness and sensuality and stuff like that. I'm talking about the way the mind translates once it gets into the human vehicle. You follow? And it's, the strength is what you're gaining. You're not gaining strength and sensuality, strength and not being ornery, strength and this way. Strength is not placed in categories in the next level like it is here. It's an expression. What you're gaining is strength. So in a sense, you weren't placed in a vehicle because of a lack of strength. You were placed in a vehicle to become strong in the way that that vehicle could make you become strong.
And strategy. You've got a tremendous opportunity for strategy.
You all understand that?
Yes.
Because you've got to remember now, when you get to the next level, you don't have to worry about sensuality. You don't have to worry about all of the characteristics that the human vehicle has. But you do have a weakness if you're not strong by overcoming those things.
Those weaknesses are vacuums. Those weaknesses are lacking. There are things that you're having an opportunity to build that aren't there yet. And but this task translates strength, strategy. And when you gain strength and strategy, then when you get back to the next level, they may be taken out of those terms. But you will be bigger. You will have more knowledge. You will have more strength. You will have more wisdom and more strategy. And you couldn't have gotten it from any other task but this one. You couldn't have gotten the ingredients that you're getting in this task from any other task but this one.
I know it sounded like we have contradicted ourselves, but you listen to that carefully because really we haven't. We've only clarified it a little bit. Okay? Right?
In my mind, this vehicle, if it were to have been put in another vehicle, same weaknesses would not have surfaced. There would have been other weaknesses that surfaced.
According to the vehicle.
And the mind.
So, like each one of us has a task because the vehicle we're put in, but we're not, it's just what you said, we're not strengthening that particular area. We're gaining overall strength. So if that mind was put into another vehicle with different weaknesses, it wouldn't matter.
That's right. It wouldn't matter. Wouldn't matter. You weren't put into that vehicle because of the kind of weaknesses your next level mind had. Do you all understand that?
Your vehicle is the expression of the weakness of that vehicle.
Right.
But your mind is gaining strength.
Your mind didn't need that kind of definition of strength. It needed strength. And here, no matter what the package was of needed strength and strategy, it offered it because it had the weaknesses. Plus, the task called for a spectrum of that had to be accomplished. What? Well, an overall spectrum that what the next level wanted to accomplish in the task.
Of the humans, like what we're
Well, not necessarily. That's only part of it. The humans can be the beneficiaries if we do our task well. they can be extremely benefited if we do our task well. But what we're still doing is that you didn't come entirely for them. In fact, you came more for what you needed. But if we do it right, they are extreme beneficiaries.
What do you mean by spectrum, Mr. Owen?
Well, because the spectrum, the one who initiated this task had an overview and saw some individuals in the kingdom of heaven that needed some development in this area, and saw also what could be done for this little globe down here if so many different ingredients could be there for a period of time, and how all that would germinate. And that's the kind of spectrum we're talking about. Do you understand that?
Now, did you all understand it when I said there were a lot of individuals in the next level who have a weakness? In other words, it isn't a weakness in sensuality, a weakness in this or that. It's just a weakness. And how many times have we told you that you were being prepared for a task when you go back, and you need strength, and you will gain that strength from this task that you do if you do the task right.
Would you say that weakness that those members of the next level have would be synonymous with youth or lack of experience?
Oh, I would say, yes.
You all follow
you mean,
that?
age
In other words,
next level, age of-
yes.
Oh, of course,
Youth
yeah.
and lack of experience. It doesn't mean weakness,
No.
like deficiency.
No.
It means weakness because of lack of experience or opportunities
Even
to
though
develop.
you all are of different age, you may still have a weakness according to that age, but everybody goes through it. And you have been given the opportunity to get strength. So you want to take that, take this opportunity and make something of it. Well, you've already done it anyway. No, Rody, I don't want you to bite your fingers.
Well, I was saying two things. I thought I heard you say something about the translation. And I don't know, I'm not sure what you said, but the picture I got was that in the next level, when you're talking about members being more youthful or inexperienced, that what comes to them is translated down. Just as we translate down what you get directly, and it gets on down the line. And that what we're trying to build up, this strength, is kind of like a clarity or more accurate, trying to strive for hearing, understanding, knowledge that is more accurate.
That's right. In the next level, after having this task, you'll have more overview. You'll have more wisdom because you will have experience behind you that you had not had. You will have learned lessons of the kind of strength development and push of mind and will and strategy that only a very unique interception in a primitive world could give you.
And that's part of what you were saying, maybe,
Translation?
yes, and related to just in our daily lives, like when you're mentioning those people who have out-of-craft tasks, if we just get into our routine, it doesn't matter how many tasks you pile on, and we do them, and we do them religiously, that isn't enough. You've got to have that force that's going to bring in that clarity, or it's a waste of time.
Absolutely. If you're out-of-craft task, this is one reason why we try very carefully not to let your out-of-craft task be so captivating of your vehicles. Because if they're so captivating of your vehicles that your next level mind is not on what's important for the next level mind to gain, if you're more concerned with the computer or the editing and every once in a while you remind yourself that you're a member of the next level, then we're dragging our feet. We're wasting our time.
This question sort of ties in with a question I wanted to ask some time ago that I was supposed to ask at the beginning of the meeting, and I never did. But you're talking may not be accurate, that some, our minds, not just the minds that are in these vehicles, but the mind, what there is of it in the next level, is viewing all of this, or is recording all of this somehow for its own experience, for its own growth. So when we return, there won't be just the memory of the vehicle, but there'll also be a memory of the mind's perspective of what took place. I don't know if that's right or not. Is that?
Your next level mind?
Yes.
If you're saying that the next level mind that is in that vehicle is actually keeping record of what it did and what it accomplished, it's not keeping record of how many glasses were in the lab or how many, but it is keeping record of the difficulty of control, the difficulty of the strategy, the effort it took to do this, and the effort it took to do that.
What's important to the next level.
That's right. And it is keeping that in its memory, and it will not lose it.
Okay. So then, what happens sometimes is when I'm down, I've had dreams of going back to school and having to retake lessons, and I'll later recognize it's because I maybe slipped in an area that I needed to apply more effort. I was slow in applying lessons that have been given to me, and I've felt for some time that the mind has had some interaction with the vehicle while it was down. I wondered if it was related to what you some years ago told us about receiving lessons in our sleep. Do we get to our minds? Are they in a classroom while we're down? Is that still?
Well, I'll tell you what, Tia and I feel more now about what your dreams are more your guilt, your fears, instead of being accurate. They translate. Like, let's say if you're worrying about, am I accomplishing enough, or am I dragging my feet here, or am I doing this, then your tapes will start picturing a circumstance that has that feeling.
Okay.
And a lot of times it's just because that's been your preoccupation, and it's the brain translation of that preoccupation. Even though it might not be a conscious preoccupation, it might be a feeling that you have of goodness, I'm not getting this accomplished, or I'm going to have to take this class over again, or I'm, any of these fears that might come in, because even this vehicle has fears. Actually, because it's in the genes.
It's primarily vehicular.
Oh, sure, it's vehicular. But it will even vibrate so strongly that the mind will come through and say, you're doing a lousy job of this next level task that you're supposed to be doing, and have dreams about it. Do you see what we're saying? But I don't take those dreams as premonitions, or wake up and think, oh my goodness, I'm doing a lousy job. Because usually the dreams are not founded. Or that kind of dream is usually not well founded. And I can usually recognize why the vehicle had that kind of dream. Because the vehicle is responding in that way. All of your vehicles, to a sense, are responding that they're failures. In a sense. Because they're not doing what they were programmed to do. None of them are doing what they're programmed to do. You've had to say, I'm sorry, I've got to set that program aside. I've got another one to put in here. And I really would like your cooperation. And then they try to buck you and buck you and buck you. But that program keeps coming and saying, now wait a minute. If I don't, I'm going to throw this life away. I was programmed to do this. And that even may be an unconscious feeling, but it's still nevertheless the vehicle making those emissions to you. And you might go to sleep and dream about it.
Also, Alodi, when we were talking to you about the class, when you were resting, we weren't completely awake enough. In fact, the information that was given to us was that you all were the graduating class, remember? And so our interpretation which was just as much untrue as what we're saying right now is untrue. You know what I'm saying? We only thought we were talking the truth, but even still, we knew the truth wasn't exact because of these vehicles. Well, you all know that. But something was happening. Probably the mind coming into the vehicle more, and but at the time, what was given to you, I'm sure, was all that you needed to help you to be where you are right now. Just like what we're giving to you now is what you need. It isn't, we're not making it up. I mean, we're trying to give you the absolute truth. But we also are aware of our vehicles and how we're limited. And so, in a sense, you just kind of put aside what we said back there. As far as you all being in the classroom, because we've realized now that you all are members of the next level, which we did not think that was the case back then, right? So it doesn't apply.
I think now your vehicle, we don't know exactly what your mind does while your vehicle sleeps, except maybe guard it, and it might then try to come back after the vehicle has had an adequate rest to accomplish more of what it tried under the conditions of the vehicle the previous day. Do you follow that?
I wanted to clarify, it wasn't the mechanism or motivation for a downer. I felt that it was mine coming in and saying, look, you've got to push forward in this area. I could see how it could apply, whether it did or not. And
Didn't think you were saying it.
You know what I think the viewing tasks were that you all had? I think that was an opportunity to get your mind relaxed so that your vehicle's mind relaxed so that your next level mind could come in.
Yeah, get it preoccupied.
Get it preoccupied.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
One double check something else you said earlier. I've been thinking that the ones that had dropped away I felt sort of resentful because we had to stay here longer doing work that they hadn't done. And if I understand right, that's not really the case.
We don't know.
We'll stay here longer
Yeah,
because they dropped away? No, we're not staying here longer because we're doing such a good job.
Well, what you're saying now, if our task is, if that's just a secondary, and our primary task is for our growth, then that means as soon as we put out the effort to build up the next necessary level of strength we're supposed to be at for our other tasks, then we can go.
Okay, look at it this way. Maybe you said this, I don't know. But you do your task, and when you have gotten enough mind in where you have reached the strength, and in the process the task has been completed, then we will probably leave. I don't know if you said that. Did you say that? You understand that? In other words, now we don't know where the level of strength is, and we don't know where the end of the task is. But we do know that if you waste a day of sulking or being down on yourself or not doing your task, you are delaying your own departure, so to speak.
Yes, or letting your vehicle be more human than under control of your next level mind.
Or if you, I'm not saying that you're causing everybody to stay behind. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that you are defeating your own purpose.
Right. You will go back having
back
accomplished less. In other words, you're not taking advantage of every minute you have of the task. Each minute, each hour that you permit your vehicle to be human, you're wasting time that could be spent on strength development and strategy. And you will go back lesser than it could have been had every hour been spent on it. Huh?
And be aware of what you did those.
Well, it's not
You won't know
important whether...
because you won't be as strong as some of the others.
But they're not going to shove it down your face and remind you and say, look, let's all go up and measure how tall strength and strategy is, you know.
Not a machine, you know, a quarter is not.
Randy?
Logically, in my brain, because it has to translate to the vehicle, it says that he and Doe cannot help but gain strength on this task that they're doing. Is that?
Of course, we're gaining all kinds of strength.
So then logically to me that says a member of the next level
always can gain
Increase.
strength with increasing, and there's really probably no.
No end to it.
That's why.
See, we are gaining strength, and we are preparing ourselves for a task when we go back. In other words, just like you. And I have a strong desire to get all the strength that I can,
That's right.
because I want to be ready to be able to accept that task. I want to be in a condition to accept it. I don't want to go back and they say, well, you got almost right for it, but I tell you what, let's send you on another task, and that'll make it just right. You want that to happen? Would you say? I wouldn't want that to happen, would you?
That's really exciting.
Of course, you can have that. This is really
Well, there's
serious.
no end to that.
There's no end to it. Any other?
Well, just checking some of the things, one thing that's been most frustrating, I guess, to my next level line is that when we're talking, when we go from lesson to lesson, because I'm thinking because I'm in this vehicle is what makes it sound different. My next level mind knows that everything that's said is really the same picture. They're just looking at the same picture in different ways, and it's just because the vehicle's limited. It sees it in the contradiction. But it's really not. It all fits together in one picture. But this vehicle is what's seeing it at different angles and thinks it's something contradicting itself.
In what way, Annie Hoodie? Contradicting in what way? You mean the whole thing, or just?
Well, no, as we go through
Oh, from a.
like you'll give us a lesson, and then you say how later it looks like it's all different, and my next mind knows it really isn't all different. It's just the vehicle limitation makes it look.
Okay,
Yes,
but see, the thing of it is, now what you should have learned a long time ago, which we had to learn, because no one questioned things more than we did. You all think you all questioned it, but we questioned it more than you did. But what we did have to learn was that you never let a thought come in of contradicting.
The new
Because
step.
of the big.
Or compare the new step with the old one and say, well, what does that mean? What happened to that old thought? You know?
In other words, because you know that, maybe that's what you're saying, I don't know, but the vehicle will automatically say, see, I told you. I told you. Because it is finding a way. Now, even when I'm talking now, I can hear your vehicle, some of your vehicles saying, this is just a cover-up. Or this is just an excuse. You know what I'm saying? We know human characteristics. Don't you know? We don't give a hang about them. Our task is to tell you what we know. And you can accept it, do your task, or not. It's up to you. But we know that your minds are in enough right now. Your minds are in enough right now that you know what we're talking about, even though the vehicles are balking. And we don't care now.
When you were talking about, when you were saying strategy and strength, that's what we're gaining here. When you're talking about strategy, do you mean the part of the mind or the areas of the mind that's learning to deal, to grow the fastest? Or I'm not sure what you're saying.
No. Strategy, the kind of strategy we've talked about that of how to get your tool manipulated in a way to make it cooperative. Like if this approach doesn't work, then I go back and the next level of mind says, okay, I'm going to try this approach, and I know that some approach is going to work, and you're having to constantly try a new strategy at how to deal with this primitive plant that you're occupying. That kind of strategy we're talking about, and that's very important strategy. Because you're looking at a test, you're occupying a test, a laboratory test, that's in a primitive condition, and you're trying to get maximum performance out of it. And a lot of the things that you try don't work. And you have to not let it do you in. You have to back off, and a lot of things may never work. Your task is to still try to get performance even at those areas that don't work. But your task is to refuse to accept that it won't work in that area. You follow that? And because that you're keeping after every area of deficiency and weakness of that vehicle. That's what gives you strength. So it gives your mind strength. And if you let up, or you say, I'm not getting anywhere, then you're not working. You're just giving in. And giving into the vehicle doesn't necessarily mean a mark against you. It means that for that period of time, there's no forward development happening. And you're being willing to have no forward development. And what's funny is in the next level, you're put in a situation where forward motion is so much automatically a part of everything that happens that when you zero into the time frame of a garden as dense as this is, the type of sustained effort is hard for you to realize what it takes. Does that make any sense to you? In other words, you're all discovering what it